Mihi to our Minister Matt Ducey, ka nui te mihi kia koe, he tino waka nui tēnei pere. And I want to first of all acknowledge this bill. It's the first under this new government to promote te tiriti o Waitangi, and the ceiling hasn't fallen in. It recognises and protects our tino rangatiratanga. And this bill also seeks to promote the decision-making capacity of our people in care, supporting their mana motahaki. Ka nui te mihi, ka nui te mihi, ka nui te mihi kia koe. What it also does is accepting the recommendations from Hiara Oranga, the report of the Government Inquiry into Mental Health. And I do want to mihi to many of the esteemed members, Professor Ron Patterson, who is the Chair, Ta Mason Jury, founder of Te Pāti Māori, Dr Barbara Disley, Dean Langihuna, Dr Jemima Tiatia Seth, and Josiah Tualahi Malahi Arohatu. 5,200 submissions were made, 400 meetings were held with tangata whaiora, their families and members of the public, health and other service providers, iwi and kaupapa Māori providers, many community experts. And I guess what we are seeing is most significantly the shift away from a system that has harmed many in our community. So our current mental health framework has completely failed our communities and many communities. And I think going towards acknowledging te tiriti will benefit all of our mokopuna. The status quo system, as you know, has required a real shift from anything that has been done before, and we respect that this is the intent. One of the things that also is emphasising is the well-being of the communities and the people first approach. And it is so humbling to be able to be in the House to mihi to you for that. This is what Māori input looks like, and no one has had their skin ripped off their bones. What input is also required to radically shift from what has been failing our whole communities. It's been informed by experts, well-versed experts. It's been informed by whānau who are living and challenged with a revolting aspect of how the mental health system has let us down. And it's been afforded, as including te tiriti, to ensure that we are all able to thrive. So I guess it's difficult not to reflect on the anti-Māori agenda and ignoring things that have been affected in the last 10, 11 months. And I'm sad to see that it's taken nearly a year for us to get to a bill that is acknowledging the deprivation, most significantly the depth of change that's required. One of the things that I want to do, so I do mihi to Hiara Oranga and the boldness of the Minister for taking this once-in-a-generation opportunity for change. Our own Ta Mason Jury pioneered for Māori health, citing in his Māori model of health, Te Whare Tapapa, that our mental health is as equally important as our physical health, our spiritual health, and the wider health of our whānau and our whole community. One of the aspects also that I'd like to mihi to in this particular bill is that what we have is I guess, sadly, when we see Māori are disproportionately represented, that we have the boldness within us across all parties to be able to look at repealing and putting in place something that, as we've heard before, that reflects our human rights-based approach, that is promoting and supporting decision-making that aligns with a whole wellbeing model of mental health, and it's providing measures to minimise compulsory or coercive treatments. It's been a long time coming, and we look forward to hearing the submissions and following this through to the third reading. Kia ora.
Oh. Now that sounds so Debbie.
It is Debbie, and I appreciate the fact one thing that I will refuse to apologise for is sometimes I make people uncomfortable with the things I say, publicly, whatever. And it's important to make people uncomfortable. It's important to feel uncomfortable ourselves, because that's how we come to debate, court it all of that. What we've lost in our communities is the ability to be uncomfortable and to continue to have those debates respectfully. And so it's hard, because every time you bring up the word Māori, we start seeing attacks. People start going, that's your win stamp.
People get reactive.
All this sort of crap. And I'm tired of it. I'm Māori and I'm proud. And I'm Navajo, I'm Aboriginal and I'm Sami and I'm proud. And you are who you are. You can be proud. You as well. We don't need to get into rhetorics that are bad, but the reality remains. And Eduardo Duran, a Native American psychologist, outlined it as multi-generational PTSD. Epigenetics as well plays a part of that. So it's built in. Trauma is multi-generational. We see it. I see it in whānau. We've got it in my own whānau with adoption, having ripped our whānau apart. And bringing everyone back together has been painful. But that's the reality, and that's what leads into mental health for Māori predominantly, is the issue of colonisation, the issue of trauma, losing our language, losing our land. All the things that people are angry about at the moment is the reality. If that is not addressed through tino rangatiratanga and the ability to have our own processes around healing under the Mental Health Act, then it's no good to us.
The loss of autonomy as well.
Well, you You can't heal if you aren't dealing with the issues in the culturally appropriate manner. Many of them have actually lost access to their culture, and that's what breaks them up. And I remember the Dia Glassy case, a really horrific case in Rotorua, that poor wee girl. But when you delved into the abusers and their life histories, it's little wonder she had no chance in life. What was done to them was as horrific, but they thought it was normal. So they thought it was funny to, to do what they did to her. And then the iwi turned around and said, the leaders said, we failed one of our own people. We failed them. So they were going to make a bigger effort. But it goes beyond iwi doing it. We need to do it to our own people, but we need resources. We need the experts. We need the follower, and we need to follow through and resolve the issues that we've got that are outstanding. Did you know that 11% more disabled died of COVID and still dying at a higher rate than any other demographic in this country? Disabled. Did you know that Māori disabled are the highest number within that number of disabled? Also, if we look at our stats, we're looking at the fact that Māori from the age of 40, 67% have a disability of some kind through poverty, mental health, through childhood diseases. All of that is
through the labouring jobs they worked as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, even worse in those regards. And yet we're told to make our systems race generalized. Don't bring in the race about it. And yet the contradiction is that when they say about the greatest need, it's actually that group that has the greatest need. And so if you don't bring race into it, you're actually not going to capture that group. I know, because I've done the research around these groups. I've actually interviewed them for disabled Māori and found they will not go to hospital. They will not go in. I'm terrified of hospital now. It's more likely to kill me in the next 2 years than save my life. That's how dangerous it is. My doctor and I have a contingency plan.
I had something mentioned here from a friend of mine. Now, the person commented on my personal Facebook page, hence why it's not showing up in our chat column here, but was said, had a colleague that collapsed at work who couldn't be moved, but St John's told us to get him to a hospital. Now, I don't know where the location of that happened, but Palmerston Hospital, which I think is the nearest, is over a freaking hill.
Yep, it is over a hill. But yeah, to respond to Huhana, what is often good for tangata whenua is also good for Pākehā and Tauiwi.
Yes.
Like Pākehā and Tauiwi can also access those resources that are developed for Māori. Like a Māori doctor's not going to turn away a Pākehā or a Tauiwi.
Well, the evidence to that is with ACC now funding rongoa Māori medicine treatments, and guess who are the biggest demographic that are using it? Pākehā.
Yeah.
It's also like that with certain acupuncture.
Yes.
It's like it's not the demographic because acupuncture is a traditional Eastern medicine.
Yep.
And that's not the group that's using it. It's the Western ones that are using it because they don't want the pharmaceutical approach.
Yeah. They want what is offered, which is a natural way. I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to re-indigenize our health system if we just got off our bums and did it. But and it takes, everyone benefits from the most marginalized, the most in need group. Like with disabled, if you made all housing plans LifeMark standard, prepared for future needs, you would actually have cheap refits, and it suits overall because cradle to the grave, it makes sense. But we don't do that because it doesn't look pretty.
Well, I do know GJ Gardner's had the first it was the first person that ever dealt with being wheelchair accessible was Tony's place in Hamilton, and and it was like, we've never done this before, but they were like, but we want the challenge. And it is a template now that they actually have for other disabled-focused houses. But, I mean, his situation made that achievable. I mean, I know you probably don't quite have the same, same fortunate circumstances that he had that led him to be able to get that house built.
Oh, look, I'd love to own a home. I know exactly. I'm a foodie. My birth father was a chef. He was an artist. I found out later that I love doing all of that too. And I love cooking, but I can't cook. I haven't been able to cook for the last 5 years because the kitchens, they promised me. We moved in here 2 years ago and they promised me they were going to do an area of the kitchen so I could actually do my own cooking.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. They changed their minds. They said it cost too much. So they refused to do it after I'd agreed with them. And that's the thing. I mean, you know, people have died waiting for modifications. You know, a blind woman I know, beautiful person, she was already blind, type 1 diabetic, had been blind for a number of years, but she had to have a leg amputated. It got amputated, but she was left stuck in the house because there were steps to get in and out. The doors weren't wide enough. She died waiting, trying to access, you know. I just can't fathom how society doesn't see that disabled people are a part of this society. I mean, every public holiday, every weekend, there's no trains. I'm stuck at home every single time.
And then you have the people who don't do it go, but Huhana, you can catch a wheelchair taxi, you know, and it's like, but is that actual service available? Now, I'm not sure how Auckland is, but in Wellington, you can't get a wheelchair taxi.
I got told it takes 2 weeks. You have to book 2 weeks in advance for Wellington, but that's because Dean, who used to run Wellington airport shuttles that were accessible, it was his taxi. He was looking for help during the COVID times, and no one would help him, and he just couldn't continue. And as a result, we lost all of that. But in Auckland, we tried. I was nominated for a Māori award thing one night, and we stayed at the quarters, you know, got flashed at a staycation, went to book the taxis, not one, the concierge tried 10 taxi companies, not one of them were available after 5 p.m. It's happened to me at the hospital when they wanted to get me home. I said, you better ring before 5, and they didn't, and I couldn't get home. So, you know, I had to wheel myself home in the dark with all my suitcases, and I was still sick. So, you know, this is the ridiculous nature of our country. And we have no politician in power that sits there for our voice to be heard. We have lost our ministry. We are losing our CEO, the first disabled CEO in the country that had a disability. And they underfunded that ministry from day one. This is not just this coalition's fault. Let's not lay it on there. This is a collection of politicians that have never wanted disabled people to have their own ministry. I know that for a fact. And they were forced after I did the Hikoi of Hope. As a result, they turned around and punished us by underfunding that ministry. In the partnership agreement, we had this most unique way of doing it: deaf name, a Māori name, and the Pākehā name, English name. They've taken the Māori name out, the sign language name's gone, and now it's no longer a ministry. Why? Yeah, they were struggling because it was underfunded. Paul Paula tried to get the ministers, Simmons, Upston, to listen. None of them did. So then they punished us, cut our budgets, cut out autism funding, the whole lot. And we will remain punished until we get a change of government. You know, like little children.
I
think I need it.
I'm going to say something that it's going to sound libertarian-pilled, and that's because I am a libertarian. But taxation without representation is theft. And if you've got people that are taking your taxes and not investing it into things like public health, they are stealing your money.
They are.
Let's just be honest. Like Luxon is taking your money and using it to fund himself. And it's like, no, bro, you need to put that money back into public health that benefits everyone.
Yeah.
They've got private health insurance. They don't need it.
I know.
You know, this is the thing that I find so sick. I think I love my country. I love it dearly. I try, you know, I live with depression too. Do you know how hard it's been to try and lift up during these times when all you're getting is attack on you because you're Māori, attack on you because you're disabled, attack on you because I'm about to be a senior. You know, and I am a teenager, I already am, but I'm about to hit the old over 65 bit where I will lose my funding and have to start all over again. And I might be lucky if they don't reclassify me like they did with another friend. After 20 years of being disabled, she's now got a health condition and they've refused her all disability funding, the whole lot. This is what they're doing. They also said they weren't going to harass people on job seeker sickness and supported living payments. I spent in March this year an hour and a half answering the same question at the office. In the end, the poor case manager was behind her shaking her head. In the end, I looked at her because I had a medical doctor with me who asked her the same question, why. She's answered it. And then I turned around and I said to them, look, I'm stopping the meeting. Send me the questions by email and I'll bring a lawyer with me to the next meeting, because I'm concerned that what you're doing is manipulating it to make it look good so you can cut my funding.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from them since. Maybe that's because I am a lawyer and I can talk my way out of things. But that, I mean, I find that funny for me, but I really am worried about all the disabled going through that service.
Especially when the work and income who can't even sit down there and follow the same set of rule books. Like, that's the part that gets me, like, you know, I mean, I haven't had the disabled aspect, but like literally like having a procedure that should be uniformed and is uniformed in the law being applied so Mickey Mouse, and the part, like, I remember one time having a debt incorrectly created. It took me 5 attempts to get the answer, and every single time go, I can assure you there's no fraud being created. And I had to go back, I can assure you there's fraud being created. So I'm not going to give the information that would alleviate the clients who's questioning it. So then the client still questions and still thinks there's fraud being created while being told they're not. So give me the information or sit down there and do it. Stop assuring me it's right while withholding the information that I can assure you it's right. It is no point telling me it's standard policy to break the law.
I'll give you a scenario. I actually did a cartoon about it a few years ago. I had a client, right? We go in. Now, she's in a wheelchair. She has seizures. She's in residential care, but she's in her 30s, or this is a while ago. Mm-hmm. And she was legally blind. They went in there and they turned around and said to her, we've got a job for a courier. We can get you your driver's license. I'm sitting there, right? Pointed out to them that she's blind. And she turned around and said to my client, well, you're just being lazy, aren't you? You don't want a job. She's not allowed to drive by law. She's an unstable epileptic, need 24/7 care. And that was the response. Well, that got changed when I spoke to the manager. But this isn't the first time. I got a found.
They did that to John Murphy at Winslow Inn.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, when we did the welfare report, it was scary. The homeless in Wellington told us quite clearly that they don't get a benefit because they're too terrified of walking into wins. And I'm well aware that there's quite a few people out there that are so scared of wins that they live off their family because that's the only income they can get, and they can't manage their lives because they have severe anxiety to the point it's gotten worse over the years.
Well, actually, I can tell you this. I've got a delivery to an MSD workplace that I'm actually saying I will not personally deliver to.
Yeah.
Because I don't, you know, the amount of crap I've had from WINS, the threats to call security because, you know, the beneficiary is always wrong, even when the law says they're right, having to threaten the High Court judge to, like, taking it to the High Court and sitting there and going, well, your answer's not acceptable to me. Are you prepared to say it to a High Court? I'm not taking it. Well, do I have to go to a High Court? I see that as threatening behaviour. I go, well, put it this way. If it was Judge Judy, she'll be sitting there calling you an idiot. And they go, I don't appreciate your time. And I go, I'm sorry for saying that Judge Judy will call you an idiot because that's what you're doing.
Hey, you know, and you're going to commit
perjury and go to jail for 4 years to sit there and batter for, you know, to sit because your morals and prides are going on that one. The person didn't even know what perjury was, and I said, that's called lying under oath. At the moment, you are withholding information I'm legally required to. And are you going to then go, but I'm allowed to withhold information I'm legally required to in front of a judge? A judge ain't going to sit there and take the crap. I'm not taking the crap, and you're becoming bully boy behaviour. If you take that to a judge, you can be held in contempt. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, a quick phone call to the supervisor and, oh boy, there's an apology and getting shit done. But, you know, like some of us hold our cool. Other people end up with guns like they did in Ashburton.
Yep.
You know, there's a conference in November. I'm actually a keynote for it, Poverty by Design. I've been thinking about it lately. And I had a homeless person under the last national government. Now, we rescued her from a violent partner, rescued her and her kids, right?
Yeah.
But she had nothing. So I took her to my WINS office here, and I knew the manager through the WEAG stuff. And he comes up to me and goes, what's the situation? So I filled him in. He said, okay, how much does she need? She had a baby and nappies and stuff, and he thought that out. So that was fine.
Yeah.
Then she had to, calm your blood pressure there, bro. Then she was fine. And then she had to, needed to get a house, need to get a home. So we booked in to see the housing person. And I nearly dropped. This was their new rules. My jaw dropped, and I just looked at her. I said, we're leaving right now. And he just turned around and said to her, oh, you chose to leave, eh? You can stay with him.
I've had that from WINS.
I'm not going to assess you for the house. You don't qualify. So I contacted Marama Fox at the time because she was the minister. She was good. She helped me rescue quite a few disabled that were being evicted and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, I got a meeting with the manager. Manager apologised. We had another interview with a woman. The guy kept staring at us all through, the one that declined it. And this woman did the interview and she qualified. So by design, that government and this one are fudging things to suit their agendas.
Oh, yeah.
There's no genuine attempt to get the wait list for people needing housing, because if they did that, they would find that there's thousands out there, while there's 100,000 houses sitting empty around New Zealand for land banking.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've got over 45,000 people needing homes. There are homes, but there are people holding money through the homes by just land banking. And those are some of the issues. Now, how is someone with mental health going to cope going into WINS, which look at you like you're a criminal, and then you're dealing with your own anxieties, depression, fears, and you want to apply for a house, you don't qualify, so they put you in emergency housing or in a rat-infested hostel, and then they expect you to cope. It's not on. There's all of these issues come right back to that same bill. Unless you resource properly, unless you provide the right supports. Not everyone is a David Seymour that got funded through Atlas and everything else and has had the privilege of his life, has never really worked in a real job. Or his little sidekick Brooke that looks at him with lovey-dovey eyes every time she sees him in Parliament. You know, that the privilege they hold is disgusting. But they are lauding it because they don't understand. Not everyone has an agenda of becoming a multimillionaire. Not everyone wants the riches of the rest of the world. Most people just want a quiet, normal life of being able to have the opportunities, etc. No one wants to be on a benefit. And the few that abuse it, it's less than 1%. We have more corporate fraudsters than we do in the WINS system. And I had to deal with one tetraplegic where they created the debt by allowing the ex to be there and care for her. Now, housing did that, welfare did that, and ACC did that. Then, when he got her pregnant against her will, she's a tetraplegic, can't move, can't fight. They turned around and blamed her, accused her of fraud, left her with a $250,000 debt, and they almost wheeled her out onto the street to leave her there in the hospital bed. That is what I was dealing with 10 years ago by that last government. I don't want to deal with that again. I can't deal with it anymore.
And that is something that, I mean, I've noticed at WINS. It is commonly you're wrong even when you're right sort of mentality. And it's like, I remember one time where they made a address screw up. So I have a PO box. The reason why I have a PO box for all my mail is so that if my former flatmate James, who was an epileptic, who didn't sit down there and eat properly, that led to a lot of his problems, I don't want him going through people's letterboxes to go for that. On 2 different occasions where I've moved houses, Work and Income have deliberately removed my PO box. Oh, I don't see what the problem is. The last time they did that, it was at the same point where he discovered approximately where I was living in Newtown, and I know his normal behaviour was to go through looking through letterboxes. And what did they do? They sent my community services card through the mail.
Oh,
And it got delivered to the wrong address. They have decided not to resolve the complaint the second time round. They can't understand why it's led to me having to move houses. I mean, it was a multitude of issues that had to lead me to move out of that house, but they contributed to it, and they go, oh, but that was a choice. It's like, you guys got to take responsibility, you know? And they talk about, oh, personal responsibility. They go, personal responsibility is a two-way street. Who was the person who removed the address? And it's like, you know, it's constantly the blame game. But doing it, it's like, oh, but this is 2.5 years ago. I don't see why it's still a problem. I go, because he hasn't exactly gotten over what has happened. Like, I got sent for, he was a straight man, sexually explicit text messages about gay sex. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing is, if you're an abuser, Work and Income would sit there and back the abuser than the abused every single time.
Oh, absolutely. I had that with clients too.
Yeah, it's like, you know, an abuser at Work and Income, you know, they will breach protection order,
I know.
allow to hide and subvert evidence that would breach protection orders.
I know. It's not new. I mean, we need basically bring in the universal
Basic income, yeah.
income. Yeah.
Yeah.
When it
We're at
works.
that point.
Well, it works in those countries like Finland and that. If you've got the basic costs covered, then working on top of that is a bonus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone gets it.
Yeah.
It's universal. So people go, oh, we can't afford it. Well, we actually could. The
Yeah.
more money circulating within our country, the more people spend.
Of course. I mean, we did it during COVID.
Yeah, well, people
Yeah.
spent. You know,
Yeah.
it did. People spent. I mean, if they'd had Uber delivery, I think people would have lived on Ubers for those weeks.
Yeah.
But you know, people spend. And, you know, if you haven't got the money to spend, well, people are stealing, desperate ends. You know, if you're hungry, what are you going to do? You're going to let your kids starve, or you're going to take the risk? And that's, now that the food banks are closing, I fear for things. I mean, we've got our own garden. We are now setting up a bigger garden. I can't, but I've got people in to help. We are setting up a bigger garden because we've got nieces, nephews, mukapuna that we want to support. And we also want to try and teach them how to manage on the basics. I was raised by adoptive parents. My adoptive mum went through the Depression. That's how old they were. And, you know, 1920s, mate. I mean, this is not something I would think most young people would know about. She was frugal. She taught us everything: how to bottle, how to grow, how to manage on things, how they got the cheapest meats, or they managed to get a beast and they cut it all up and did all that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we're doing everything we can to cut down.
There's a misconception that beneficiaries don't know how to manage money, and I've seen the complete opposite. A lot of beneficiaries know how to manage.
They know how to manage the money down to the last cent.
Yep.
If you've got a 300 or 400 a week coming in, and your rent's 550, it's no amount of budget's going to help that one.
No, exactly.